Hi, my name is Kayla Davis Spooner, and today I have the opportunity to interview Dr. Lynette Edwards. Hi, Dr. Edwards. How are
Hi.
you?
Hi, Kayla. I'm well. How are you?
I'm great, actually.
Good.
So, Dr. Edwards, could you just give us some background details about growing up and then migrating here to Delaware?
I sure will. And I first would like to say thank you again, Kayla, for having me here. It's
You're welcome.
exciting, an exciting time in history. I am not originally from Delaware. I've been in Delaware for a little over 25 years, but I am from a small town that no one had heard of prior to some national events that happened. I am from St. Louis, Missouri, with a little small town called Ferguson, Missouri. I was born and raised there, and lived in Missouri, went to public school there in Ferguson, attended university, a state university in Missouri, and then transferred here with my husband to Delaware as he was employed with DuPont and is still currently working with DuPont. And so, in transferring out here, I changed my profession and went into education. And I attended Delaware State University to earn my teacher certificate, and then Temple University for my master's degree, and Wilmington University for my doctorate degree. And so my introduction to Delaware, my children were born here in Delaware. They are now grown. Empty nest is a fun thing. And a part of what I learned in Ferguson, what people were exposed to nationally, understanding the importance of advocacy and the importance of being involved and your rights, bringing that here to Delaware and being able to develop even more to share not only those ideas, but to share that with my Delawarean children who have now an interesting background. So I feel like I'm a Delawarean at heart, but very true to my St. Louis Ferguson roots.
Well, that's nice to know. Could you tell us a little bit about the year you were able to register to vote and how that went, as well as what was going on in our country at that time?
Oh, that's a great question because the year that I was able to vote, I was very excited about my first election. My grandmother worked for the Women League of Voters, and she was a person who always worked the election days. So I'd been going into the voting booth since I was about 5 years old. I was excited about the opportunity to be able to register. Back then, there used to be a program that was a national program through the government that would have 18-year-olds as a part of their civics lesson. You would learn that you had to register to vote. And I was 17 years old attending college, so I was excited about turning 18 and I was going to be in college and be able to vote. And so my first ballot and my first opportunity to vote, I actually was on a college campus, Northeast Missouri State in Kirksville, Missouri, at Truman University now. And the first women that came to celebrate that with me were the women of Delta Sigma Theta, Sorority Incorporated. So there was a big party about the young ladies who, for the first time, could vote as undergraduates. That was a big thing back then. And so I'm hoping to bring that excitement back around with the young ladies now, because it is exciting time, and having the opportunity to express not only your opinion, but have your voice heard in your own story, in your own way. So yes, I was a collegiate, undergraduate, and my first voting experience.
So, more about voting. How was your first time voting actually in Delaware?
My first time voting actually in Delaware was really unique because you learn what the process is, especially when you move from out of town. You learn what it is that you have to do, and getting your identification changed over, learning what district you're in, where do you go to vote. The voting precincts change. And so you have to become informed because you have to take the initiative to find out where do you go and exercise that right to not only be heard, but have your ideas and the people that align with your ideas, having that opportunity. So at the time I was living in Pike Creek, which is up in Newcastle County, and I was teaching intern at McCain High School. And at the time where the precinct was, they had changed the voting precinct. So being able to have that experience of, I need to find it, this is important. I could just hear my grandmother in my background, find it, it's your responsibility. It was a very wonderful experience. The people were very knowledgeable, and they also were really encouraging because they wanted you to have that opportunity to vote and know the issues and know what it is that you were coming out to accomplish.
Wow. Okay. So, do you have any memories about any prominent women in your life, stories about them voting?
Oh, yes. Yeah, so much so that, so one of the things that happen is when you are, I won't say a woman of color, I will say a Black American woman. And I make that distinction because the experience that you have as a Black woman and understanding not only the history, but the trajectory, the expectations, and the duty. What is your reasonable portion of duty to this particular type of opportunity for you, because it wasn't always there for us. And so I was able to walk a path to meet a lot of wonderful women. I ran for office here, state office in the state of Delaware. I ran in 2016. So to see my name on the ballot and then know that that pathway was there before me, I'm just the latest person just traveling that path. But the women from the Barbara Sizemores here in Delaware, Representative Stephanie Bolden, people who were just out there. Now we have a president of the City of Wilmington City Council, a woman of color, a Black woman. So just seeing them out there actually taking not only the steps, the risk, the sacrifice to speak not only for others, but make sure there are people there available to get you through the process as well. So that's been fun.
I can only imagine how you actually felt when you saw your name on the ballot when
yes.
while voting. Like, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
So transitioning at your time here at Delaware State University and also being a member of Delta Sigma Theta, what is the important role that the sorority took with the 19th Amendment and the Centennial celebration for the Women's March?
Yeah, what's really important for people to understand is that it's your responsibility to know the history of things that have happened where you are a citizen. And one of the things I would encourage everyone to do is, if they are really interested in the Black woman's experience with suffrage, there particularly are some books with Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. One is the Shape to Its Purpose book, and the other one is In Search of Sisterhood. Those are available for public purchase and consumption. It kind of gives you a background of what was going on with the sorority and the 22 phenomenal undergraduate women, the things they had to experience to be able to undertake such a vision. And keeping in mind that I don't think we spent enough time about what was really happening with them. Right? They couldn't go off the campus. So they had to have a chaperone even to participate in that march, a male chaperone. So just imagine that you want to go up and speak for yourself as a female, as a woman, but you have to have permission for a male to escort you everywhere you go. That was really different. So for me, understanding the history of it, understanding what was happening from 1865 after the Civil War, how long we had been actually working to become recognized by this nation as not only U.S. citizens, but citizens with rights and citizens that were going to be able to prosper under the same laws and benefits as everyone else. So for me, looking at that and marching down Pennsylvania Avenue in 2013, I participated in the 100th reenactment of that, taking my daughter and 9 other young ladies and my relatives coming from Missouri to march with me, and looking back and seeing thousands of Deltas and thousands of women. You know, that was just phenomenal from all over the world. Mm-hmm. So we're still here doing the work. Wow. It is a lifetime commitment.
That is so nice. And me also being a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, it's just a lot and overwhelming just to know the history behind the Women's Suffrage March and voting.
Absolutely.
So being a member, how do you feel, what do you feel the sorority is doing to continue its legacy with the women's voting?
I think that's a really good question because it's not always what have you done, it's what are you continuing to do. And in Delta, I can't speak for the national organization, but as a woman, when you come into the organization, your role changes. You become a mom, you become a wife, you become so many different things, and you have to figure out how to incorporate that. We have programs that are available to members of Delta Sigma Theta, and one of the things that I'm excited about is because I spend a lot of time traveling the world and looking at issues of education around the world. I'm very fortunate that my husband is a vice president of global manufacturing, and so I'm able to get into countries and have the conversations with them about their educational process and population. What's exciting? Pretty much there are always chapters of Delta Sigma Theta all over the world. A lot of people don't know that about our organization, that we have chapters all over the world. And in doing so, we actually have programs that deal with international awareness and involvement. And so being able to run for office and then step away and go outside of the country, understanding that that's important. How do you teach young ladies to apply for a passport? How do they understand Black females, that they can go around the world and that our story has been heard around the world? And that's even at a greater level with Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I am biased. And so it's a fantastic experience, fantastic experience.
I'm sure it is. So who were some of the prominent members of Delta Sigma Theta who standed on the women's suffrage national platform?
Oh, wow. So one of the things that people have to realize is what happened with Delta right after 1913, because our sorority was very young and actually was started prior to the march itself. And to look at the story and see what those young ladies were able to do, they were able to form on the campus of Howard University and then reach out to other people like Mary Church Terrell, who was not at Howard University, was an older national platform, right? And incorporate them and get them into the actual process of this change, this wonderful change that was happening. People like the story some people don't know about Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells was a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority and asked to march in the back of the parade, but decided that she would march with the state of Illinois because her work was being done in Illinois. And so these are women that were older women that were not on the campus of Howard University, but began to be involved with the Delta Sigma Theta sorority movement. So we have some wonderful members of Delta, and particularly here in Delaware, Alice Dunbar Nelson, a phenomenal woman, part of the movement, a poet, just did wonderful things in the state, and we're going to be recognizing her here, a part of the women's suffrage movement here in Delaware. So again, she's a Delta. And so we understand that the work that we do is important. It's expected. It's a part of who we are. We are leaders, and that's what we do.
Yeah, one thing I learned, Delta is a business at the end of the day.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
What were some of the issues faced by collegiate African-American women in their interest in activism and social justice? Oh,
wow. Well, I'm saying wow because I'm thinking about it in the sense of the stories that are being told in this time frame. We have to do a historical context component to understand what were the cultural norms. And so you're talking about young ladies. For example, we have one of our founders, Ethel Cuff Black. It stated that she had a car while she was attending Howard University. Now think about that, in 1913, Black American woman with an automobile. Some of them had cars attending Howard University, but in order for her to even go off the campus in her automobile, she had to have a chaperone. Often that was a chaperone that was a male, or permission from the administration to be off the campus. So some of the things that they had to deal with, being too young, you're not knowing this process. Being in Washington, D.C., consider that. That's our nation's capital. And they went forward to not only expand the sorority, but incorporate which means they had to learn the business side of how to do things. And so I think one of the things we miss about activism, these young ladies began to speak up not only for themselves, for their community, for the people that did not look like them, and it was the birth of other movements, the civil rights movements, the women's right to vote beyond what we know as suffrage, the Now movement, organizations that came out of that. But again, women of color, we were right there, and we have to tell our story.
Yes, we do. So I know you touched on some of the memories you had with
Yes.
being a member of Delta Sigma Theta, but if you can think back, what are some more of the fondest memories you had within the sorority?
Oh, my fondest memories. Okay, I have some good ones. I have good ones. I was initiated through Wilmington Alumni Graduate Chapter, and my initiation occurred with, there were 27 of us. We were professional women, and we had already completed our undergraduate studies, so we had to make application through our graduate process. Meeting those women and being able to bond with them and form a sisterhood. We still travel together, we keep in communications with one another, but being here in Delaware and having the opportunity to link with a group of women that had the same ideals in their heart as undergraduates. Some of them attended universities where there was no Delta chapter. So you have to wait and make application to the graduate process and the graduate work in that city. So my fondest memories of still being with my sorority sisters are meeting people that were the founders of other organizations. One of my sorority sisters, the mother was the founder, one of the founders of the Dover Alumni Chapter. That's the Talbot family, Dorothy Talbot Hersey, Dr. Dorothy Talbot Hersey, who had a long legacy here at Delaware State University. Her father was here as a professor. And so I was able to link with women, link with a sisterhood that continues to this day. We encourage one another, we continue to celebrate one another, and we hold one another accountable.
Wow. So I would love to know some of the activism you were a part of with your sorority sisters, if you don't mind.
Well, we have opportunities to sign up through committees of what you want to work, because you will work, but you have to look to see where your strengths, where are some of the areas you want to develop and grow. I am financially active with the chapter, and so we choose committees to participate on, and I am currently working with the Jabberwock. And our Jabberwock program is one of our large scholarship programs. I also spend time doing, again, the international awareness. My sorority sisters and I make sure we're accountable on current issues. The little stickers, did you vote today? We send each other, did you vote today? Did you go for your breast check examination? And so a part of the activism is not only reaching out to other people, but remembering to hold ourselves accountable, that things happen, whether they're deaths in our family, we get older, bringing us back into, but you still have a duty. And your duty is to make sure there are others that are coming behind you that see what you're doing and know that they have a responsibility to continue that work. So we still keep in contact. We're business owners. We have groups that fly all over the world, travel groups. We have groups that are out and speaking in schools. We do a lot of volunteerism in schools. We read books to young people together, and we just keep that thing moving. Is that, can I say it that way? We keep the train moving.
Yes. I would like to know, how has your involvement in activism throughout your life had shaped where you are today?
Well, I know, I'll give this as a very brief story. When I was 5 years old and living in Ferguson, Missouri, a lot of people don't believe that there were a lot of white supremacy groups in the late 60s and early 70s that were very aggressive. Even though there was civil rights movement, they don't believe the stories that they think that those are just in textbooks. Well, I lived in a home with my mother and my grandmother, and there were 7 of us in that home, and she was a property owner. And the members of Ku Klux Klan came and firebombed our house. They threw a bomb through the front window of our house. 7 of us were in that home. I remember jumping out the window. I remember the fire trucks coming. I remember walking to our neighbor's house, and I remember what that felt like, trying to understand why would they do such a thing. And they had a cross burning. That's not something I read. That's what I experienced. I experienced as a person, as a little girl, as a black girl. So I could not understand, what did I do? What had I done as a 5-year-old that would make someone think about taking my life? There was a trial. They did serve time for it. Not a lot of time, in my opinion. 7 people in the house. At least should have been 1 year for each person. On record, they only served of a 3-year sentence. The men served 18 months.
Wow.
Now, the moral to that story is things happen, but my grandmother still owns that property. We own the entire block of that property now. And now we are able as a family to say, this is our story. So that led me to believe, how do I get this changed? I had to learn that follow the laws, make sure the laws are working not only for you, but to protect you. And that was the reason I began to look at social justice. That wasn't something that I just read in a book. That was something I experienced. So it was a part of my journey. And I'm still here speaking about it.
Well, I'm sorry that you had to endure that. I'm pretty sure
did.
no 5-year-old would want to go through something of that nature. So being a young black woman here in this generation today, what are some life lessons you can share with me and others out there to, just be a better woman in the world?
One of the things is that we have to start valuing ourselves. We must look at not what other people are saying we are and who we are. We must defend ourselves, define ourselves, and develop ourselves. Now, if I see that one again, I want credit for it. And what I'm saying about that is that as we become more inclusive as a society, we are forgetting that the black woman and the black American experience is not just a woman of color experience. It is an experience where we've had to overcome not only legislation that was passed against us, but things that were put in place to stop us and to get us to stop our forward momentum. And so as a young woman, become educated. That doesn't always mean formal education. Know what's happening in your community. Know your personal story. Because if you don't know your story and you don't tell your story, someone else will tell it for you. So know your story and get involved. Don't be afraid. If you don't know, say, this is something I want to learn. You guys have technology at your hands that you can connect with the world in less than 5 seconds almost, right? And so one of the things that I encourage you all to start doing is to connect with other generations. Know that this is your time, but there were people that came before you, and have a plan of what you want to leave as your legacy.
Yes, it's always good to network. Networking is key.
Yes.
Well, I would like to thank you. I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview you today. So I hope, your story gets heard, and I loved your story. So thank you again.
Thank you, Kayla. It's been great being here. Thank you.
You're very welcome.